I'm Vivian, and I'm a grade 10 ESA student in the Contemporary Arts program. So to start off, I want to thank you for your time tonight to hear me speak, which has always been a difficult thing for me to do. This year, I really questioned myself and why I do what I do. I've come to this realization that making art is a way for me to feel like I exist. My art is a place where my past, present, and future can mingle in balanced harmony. It allows me to find and fulfill myself and give the best to those around me. So I live with 8 people, which are my parents, aunt, uncle, grandparents, all on my dad's side, and my 10-year-old brother. I used to live with 13 people, but 5 have moved away. These past few months, I've learned a lot about the people I live with. My parents were born in China and struggled with extreme poverty. They immigrated to Vietnam by foot and gave birth to my aunts, uncle, and father. They faced discrimination being Chinese and worked intensely to survive. This resulted in my grandma losing her left hand to frostbite when she was 20. Though they struggled, they managed to escape these conditions by once again immigrating to Canada in 1991. Something I've come to see recently is just how much those I'm surrounded by have influenced me. What my family has gone through has made them who they are, which has been passed down to me. You see, there has always been a distance within my household, which is ironic as it is always crowded. I've shared rooms and beds with 4 people for most of my life, never having a private room, but my relationships with these people remain disconnected. Growing up, I was extremely pressured to always excel in school. It was the most consistent and important part of my life. My parents would sign me up for extra tutoring on Saturday and Sunday with material that was years above my level. I was taught the multiplication tables in 2nd grade. I remember getting below 90s in middle school and the feeling of my heart sinking to my stomach in disappointment. I knew this added pressure was due to the fact that no one in my family had ever went to post-secondary because they simply could not afford it. I told myself that my parents just didn't want me to end up on a path like them. I lost myself in this huge grind of school. I was disconnected and distant with those around me, pushing them away until the day comes when I would be rich enough to give back to them. I became so obsessed that I learned to scold myself if I didn't do good. Goods and bads were so prominent in my life. These were 2 words that dictated all my actions. I felt like I lost all reason and energy back then. I ended up being diagnosed with generalized anxiety and social anxiety in grade 7. I went to a therapist with my parents and I felt really bad because I thought I was a burden at that time. They were really shocked at me wanting to come to ESA. I remember begging them every day for permission. Please, can I just audition at least? Even if I did make it in, I won't be able to go. But I did, and I'm so happy to be there today. I cried to my mom. I told her how much it meant to me and kept asking for her to let me go again and again, just hoping to break my promise. And eventually she grew super tired of me and said yes. So thinking back on it now, I think it was the first time I've expressed to her something that was so important to me. I think my relationship with her began to grow at this point. Since coming here, I've learned many things, and I believe my life has changed quite a lot. I've taken steps to try and take responsibility for the problems that I always looked past, after seeing those around me in class be able to be vulnerable in front of my own eyes. I've realized how much these problems that my past self never acknowledged held value. These past months, I've really seen things that make me feel ways I can't describe. I see my mom holding her belly fat in her hands and muttering how she's so fat and skips dinner sometimes. I see my grandpa just sitting and staring at the TV, but I know he's not watching what's on because he's staring into space thinking about something about the past. When I sleep, I'd hear cries from him, cries of pain and how he wishes for us to just let him die when his condition worsens. One time, I woke up early at 8 a.m. and saw my grandma just sitting at the table with a glass of water. She was staring at nothing and her face looked so tired and drained. She was wearing a black turtleneck, and as always, her right armhole would be empty, fabric flopping lifelessly. She had lost her younger sister because her family were too poor to take care of another kid. My uncle works too much and has lived a lonely life. My father may seem like a tough and cold-blooded man, but I've seen wonder in his eyes sometimes and how he enjoys playing around with figurines. I see him cry by himself in his room after taking my grandpa to the hospital. I see a bit of myself in my 10-year-old brother, who is currently attending extra schooling like I did. He cries alone after every test he takes, and he has told me how scared he is of getting scolded. He distances and distracts himself from everyone through video games, and he told me one day that he'd rather die than feel our parents' disappointment. So one day, in the shower, I thought long and hard. If you ask me to name 10 things about each of the people I lived with, I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm certain they wouldn't be able to do so either. Most of my family are always working at their factory jobs, making minimum wage and just trying so hard to support us with all they've got. And from the experiences they've gone through, they're bound to be lugging around lots of emotional baggage. I realized how alike we all were, exerting ourselves past limits and not being able to have time to just reconcile and find ourselves because the conditions we were put in overpowered the need to be vulnerable. This distance that existed between us was ironic because we're so similar and our experiences are so parallel to each other. Why are we so disconnected? So I told myself that time that I wanted to build a better relationship between us. By bettering myself and confronting all my problems, I can fully give all that I have to them and create better experiences for all of us. Through painting, I'm able to repair and reflect on who I am. I'm reconciled on my history, my family's history, and moments of regret and happiness, all without a lens of what was good and what was bad. I just let my body feel and my mind run. So, this painting of a self-portrait I did allowed me to feel like I actually existed as a real and conscious being. I could accept all moments and my history with confidence. Painting portraits allows me to reveal myself literally and figuratively. One night at 4 a.m, I was painting and I just felt so peaceful in my entire being that the one significant thought I had was just simply, damn, I'm happy. During the process of this painting, I've been able to bring myself closer with my family. I worked on this at home over the winter break and something great happened. So my mom, who goes to work at 3 a.m, would come home at 6 p.m. For the past years, she runs with this schedule and she exhausts herself to support us all. Because of this, I rarely see her much every day. So I was painting outside in the living room and she suddenly came out and questioned my composition. You see, my family still thinks that art isn't much more than landscapes and fruitful paintings, so I got kind of defensive. I don't know what possessed me, but I was jumping from anger and she was so shocked. After that, I decided to just stop painting and go to sleep, but I knew what I was doing was not beneficial. I came out and that's when I saw her for the first time, getting ready to leave for her ridiculously scheduled job, and I told her, "Mom, I'm sorry, I love you." It felt alien because I would never apologize or told her I loved her before, and in that moment she came up to me and full-on hugged me. I never remembered her hugging me like that before, and thinking back at that moment still makes me feel like crying. Painting allows me to create a place where I can balance my past, present, and future through many layers of oil paint, representing accumulated emotions and time. I have come to accept my past for all that it is and not let it govern my present and future. Nowadays, I find myself more empathetic and self-aware than I was. I find that I hold my head a little higher than I used to. I don't always look at my feet and slump into myself defensively wherever I'd walk. I talk to my grandpa and grandma more. I tell my parents to not pressure my brother so he doesn't end up sad in the future. I hang out with my aunt more, learn about my uncle, and have managed to come to peace with my mom. Though we still have disputes, it's so much easier to make things right and tell her thank you and I love you. We've decided to drop the 90 and upgrade standard, and even though sometimes I still feel like hurting myself when I get lower, I know it will eventually fade. There are for sure going to be days where I won't feel like I am living, but I have also learned that all this weight to my name, in the form of honest relationships, condition, time, and emptiness, can be harnessed to do amazing things. I have let art making become a way for me to adapt to future changes that are for sure to come, and I have allowed into my life a new possibility of complex, distant, different, yet ardently alike beings spontaneously colliding together and being able to exist in harmony. Thank you.